Hey everyone, welcome back. I don't know about you, but I am busy. Jazz, what about you?
Yes, I feel like I'm always busy. I have a lot of projects going on, and one of the things that I struggle with sometimes is prioritizing.
Yeah.
How do you prioritize your work, especially in marketing operations? I mean, you are getting asked so many things, you're getting pulled left and right. What do you do?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a topic that most people can relate to. I feel like I run through that every single week. So, the one thing that I think is important is trying to figure out if the item that you first get when you're looking at your list of things, is this a fire drill? Is this something that is actually disrupting the business? Because that kind of helps you start from this is high level and then work your way down to things that maybe are menial tasks.
Yeah, if something's on fire, and even if it's not your issue, if you need to help someone, sometimes you just have to stop everything and make sure that it's taken care of. Some examples are if something is posted on the website that should not be posted, take care of that. Of course, that's a fire drill, that's an emergency. If you have systems down that you need to take care of, those should be absolutely moved to the top of your priority list.
Yep, exactly. But then there's those other tasks where it comes across like a fire drill,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it's you kind of have to question, is it really? So for instance, if you have somebody who comes to you and says that your data is wrong or a report's wrong, so now you're kind of thinking, okay, this maybe not, such an
Yeah.
urgent thing, but it depends on maybe who needs that report, right? If your CEO is saying, "Oh, this is for me for my MBR," yeah, okay, that's probably a fire drill. You need to stop what you're doing and work on that task. But if it's just a regular WBR every week that a manager needs, and they're just questioning some of the data, you might have a little bit more time to kind of assess the situation and see
Yeah.
how big of a deal it really is.
And the right answer there may be like, oh, this is very important. I'm going to add it to my list and prioritize it. I think I can get to it tomorrow morning, first thing. I'm working on a big project that's very timely, but I promise I will get to you. And then sometimes it's just a matter of setting that expectation with the stakeholders because things come to you and it's an emergency for someone and it's very important and it may be at the top of their priority list, but if it is not P0 critical, you have to take kind of ownership of your own time and prioritize it and set that expectation with them. And usually people are totally understanding and they realize you're right, this isn't like the house is not on fire. Like,
Yeah, I think it also depends on who it is coming from. I think that
oh
really
yeah.
plays a big part, right? If it is a VP or someone above that, it generally is going to be bumped to the top of the
Yeah.
list to get executed. And so, but being able to be transparent and say, okay, how soon do we really need this? What can we
Yeah.
do? You can usually have a better conversation around, what the real expectation is there.
But how about projects? Like I am, I've been marketing operations. I have a list full of projects that I want to get to. Some that would be, they would enhance things, optimize things. Some will make things more scalable. Like how do I take that list of projects and prioritize it and say, okay, this month I'm going to be working on this project and these can be pushed to the side. What I like to do is look at the projects and ask myself, are these aligned with the company's overall goals in OKRs? So, for example, if you guys have an OKR to increase the lead and pipeline velocity, okay, great. That is our North Star this quarter. That's what we should be working towards, and any new project that you launch should be aligned with that. And you may have two projects that you're kind of debating, what do I start? One could be, hey, we really need new email templates. These email templates are kind of dry. Like, let's A/B test, move things around, and try to see if we can increase our email engagement. That's a very important project and exciting and fun, but it takes time and planning, and it is a solid project.
Yeah, definitely.
And you could have another one that's like, I want to increase my speed to lead. I want to rework my routing process and make it more efficient to cut down the speed to lead and maybe offer up some immediate booking links so that people can get right to an SDR's hand. Well, that is absolutely aligned with the company's OKR of increasing
sure.
lead and pipeline velocity. So if I'm prioritizing, I'm going to choose that project because it's way more aligned to the goal of the organization than the email templates. Though very important, But when you're choosing one to prioritize, you kind of have to, choose what's going to move the needle quickest.
Right, for sure. And you have to be able to map out what is being asked as well.
Yeah.
Because somebody's just saying like, oh, I need a new template. There's usually a bigger goal behind what they're trying to do. And so having an understanding of that goal and where it's coming from and what the process will take to get to that goal is also going to help you then set expectations the right way.
Yeah, and you've always been really good at that, Becca. Just if you have a project comes, you're really good at communicating and like, okay, let's step back and like look at all of the work streams and the things that we should accomplish and align it with your specific goal. What's the question? What are we trying to accomplish? Okay, what do we need to get there? And then you're formulating a project plan, and the original requester may think this is a simple project, you can get it done in a day, but that's never the case.
Yeah.
But being good at planning and communicating that project plan will really increase the partnership that you have with your stakeholders.
Yeah, definitely. And then I think just on top of that, when you're bouncing back and forth between OKRs and what somebody's asking for, there are many times that we get just random asks, random projects that come up because someone else is working on something, and then all of a sudden they go, "Oh, I need this done now, so now I need to open an ask from a different department like marketing or sales ops or something like that." So you really have to be able to dig in and think, this is someone else's emergency, but where does this fall in line of, who's asking for it and the OKR, alignment of priorities, and is this a real emergency essentially? So where does this fall? This is probably like a P5, not a P0. But at the same time, you also have to come back and think from all the other projects that you have on your task list and your to-do list, can this actually become an issue later? Over time, we're really good at putting Band-Aid fixes on things to get through them quicker, especially when you're in a small company or you don't have a large team that's working with you. So now you kind of have to think, okay, somebody did raise this as an issue or a project that they want to have done. And maybe right now I don't have all the time in the world to focus my attention on it. But if I don't and I put a Band-Aid fix on it, down the road in a couple months as we scale, will this be a bigger issue? Then we have to dig into it and really make it a big project.
I've seen this happen a lot with life cycles. Your life cycle process and architecture is the backbone behind your operations. And if you're in a company for multiple years, processes will change. And though it may be minor changes, they change. And maybe you have to tweak a smart campaign, deactivate one, activate a new one, change a process. And like over time, you're making these little changes and they're Band-Aids and they work. But after a while, you step back and you're like, well, this is a mess. Like, I don't know what's what. This is deactivated. And like, it turns into an actual project that you should prioritize. And it's probably good to look at the life cycle at least every quarter just to make sure it's running okay. The campaigns that you have are active and they're needed, because I mean, I've been in situations where I have a campaign in Marketo and it's listening for opportunity stage changes, but if your opportunity stage names change even slightly, then that's not going to fire your campaign and that could cause a big issue. But little things like that, you fix over time and you place Band-Aids on, but it's important to revisit that and prioritize that as a project.
Yeah, definitely. And similarly with like SalesLoft, I'm a heavy SalesLoft user, and in the past when we were a little bit smaller, you make those changes for specific teams that want them, and you're very like, okay, I'll accommodate this and I'll accommodate that. But then as you grow, sometimes you get to the point too where you're just like, I can't let everybody have their own decision. It needs to be an org-wide rule. This has to be something that's in place and it impacts everyone, because again, as you continue to grow and you continue to change as an org, you're going to just keep having those issues. And it's not fun when things just break. And then you really have to make that a top priority because now everything's broken. Like we mentioned in the beginning, this is now a fire drill because we've been doing this, and then everything kind of collapses because it's not working anymore.
Yes. And I mean, practically, how do we actually execute that and communicate that to yourself and the team?
Yeah.
And we talked about P5s, P0. I mean, for those who are listening who may not use that terminology every day, like a P0, we're referencing urgent, a critical, like if someone is adding a project to your board and they put it at P0, that should get your attention and say, this should jump above anything that's P1, urgent, P2, not as urgent, P3, nice to have, and so on and so forth. And even using a system, a prioritization system in your project management tool really helps. It helps you prioritize your work. It helps others see what you're working on.
Yep.
And if they go to your project board and you're working on 3 things that are P0, they may think twice before they mark their task as P0.
Definitely.
Is it P0? Is it an emergency?
And Asana is great for that, or you have a million different tools that you can use. But I personally use Asana, and I love it because we share it across different teams. So exactly to your point, you can share your board with other people. They can see, they can submit things to you, but they'll at least get a little bit understanding of your bandwidth. And to your point about communicating, I mean, that is definitely huge. I think number one, you have to over communicate when you are getting inundated with so many requests for projects, and each project has a different timeline for how quickly you can get them done, especially if it is more urgent and you know it's going to take you a long time to get that urgent request done. But you have to be able to say, hey, everyone, check out my Asana board, or create a spreadsheet and say, here's all the things I'm working on right now that came in by these requesters. You need to help me prioritize them. Give me real due dates, because most of the time people are going to say, this is ASAP.
Yes.
This is ASAP, right? And everyone's ASAP is a little bit different, but in your head, you're just thinking, oh my gosh, I have to get this done right now for everybody.
Some people are literal. Sometimes I take that. If you tell me something is, as you know, you need it today, ASAP, I'm going to think, okay, that's today. That's a P0 thing. And unfortunately, a lot of times that the miscommunication happens and someone's emergency may not be as critical as they make it seem. Right. So communication is very important. If someone says ASAP, and just kind of push back and say, ask them, okay, when do you need this by? Because I have other things on my plate and I want to make sure that you get this when you need it, and I'm slotting it in where it needs to be. So let's talk about the importance and when you need this by, because that'll help me kind of get it done.
Right. Like, what's the real expectation? And I've done that in the past too, where I've just been so overwhelmed, and a lot of times people will say, oh, you know what, actually my ASAP is next week. Like, as long as I can get it next week, I'm good. So they want it urgent. They want you to understand it is somewhat urgent, but at the same time, now you can actually sit there and go, cool, I have a few ASAPs that do need to go out tomorrow, but I can bump a couple of these to next week, which gives me a little bit more breathing room, and now I'm not so overwhelmed internally. So I think that you do have to be transparent, and you just have to very much communicate with people. And most of the time, I think their understanding will work with you.
And of course, sometimes this is easier said than done, right?
Definitely.
I mean, you may have a manager who's giving you tasks, and everyone can't just say, okay, I'll get to this when I can. Yeah. Sometimes you just have to, again, communicate back up to your manager and say, okay, I understand this is important. What should I deprioritize of the 3 other tasks that you gave me this week so that I can get this done? And putting it back in your manager's hand will help both of you kind of prioritize your task list, because you may need help. I mean, everyone can't do this by themselves every time. I don't think anyone can prioritize everything that they have going on by themselves. So don't be afraid to ask your manager for help there. All right, it is time for my favorite part of the show, coffee talk.
Coffee talk.
If you haven't listened to us before, this is a time where we kind of mimic our old tea times, where we would just sit in the coffee room and just talk for 10 minutes about random things that are funny throughout the day, frustrating throughout the day, So I want to bring that to our podcast today and talk about funny work stories. I know you have a lot because I've been a part of a lot of them.
Yes, you have been.
Tell me a funny work story that you can share that's PG-13.
Yes, I have a great one, and it's definitely PG-13. So this one, I hope people find this funny. I think it was not so funny at the time, but it ended up being really funny. So I'm at work and I'm going to lunch, and I brought my lunch that day, and I go to the fridge and my lunch was gone. And I really couldn't believe it. I was thinking, I can't believe somebody actually stole my lunch, because that's really gross, honestly.
First of all, ew.
Ew, right? Who wants to take someone's lunch? You don't really know what they've touched on it and all that. So I don't know. I just was like, well, that's really crazy. And I was kind of upset, because I'm just like, great, now I got to go get another lunch somewhere else. So whatever, I go out and get lunch.
It wasn't whatever, though.
It wasn't whatever. I was really mad.
Yeah, wasn't whatever.
I could not believe this. And this was the time where Jess and I worked together. So yeah, so I was like, Jess, someone literally stole my lunch. Like, what the heck? But, okay, so fast forward, we get lunch and whatever. The next day, Jazz goes up to the fridge and she's like, you have to look at the fridge. There was a, like, wanted picture on the fridge that basically said, I stole your lunch. Here's a picture of what it looked like. And the person who stole it was so apologetic. They couldn't believe it. And then it became very funny. And I was actually appreciative that they accidentally stole the lunch. And essentially, they thought that the bag was their bag of food. And they took it home, and they left early that day.
Yeah.
So they took it home.
So they grabbed it on the way home.
Yeah, they grabbed it on the way out and took it home, and then realized it was not their food. So then at the end, I ended up getting a free lunch. We went out to lunch together when I told the person that it was mine, and we laughed really hard about it. It ended up being really funny. But yeah, in the gist of it, I was mad because I couldn't believe it. But
yeah, I mean, the guilt that person had to feel.
Yeah.
To create a whole, they weren't even in marketing. They should have came over to the marketing department, because that was pretty impressive.
It was.
And I think we ended up being, that like made us be friends with this person, right?
Did.
Like we started to go out to lunch with them.
Yeah, it was really
You never know how work friendships start.
Yeah, he stole my lunch, but now we're best friends right now.
Okay, I have a funny story. It didn't happen to me though, but it's kind of relevant to marketing operations, because this has to do with what they call the cancel culture now. Now, and this was years ago, but now whenever something happens controversial online, if you do something on social media and you have a large following, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
They're going to go to your work and send letters and fill out the website forms and try to get you fired. I've seen it happen so many times, and it's just crazy how fast it could happen. But as someone who is kind of like the first line of defense to website forms and marketing operations, you kind of see what people say. So I saw this play out live about a coworker. I guess I had a coworker, and I guess they had a dispute with someone. They had beef with someone offline, and this person filled out our web form. They also posted on our company Facebook, but they filled out the web form, which I saw firsthand. This person had seen the lead come through in Salesforce. They filled out the web form. They saw the lead come through in Salesforce. They actually deleted the lead, but of course I could see it in Marketo, because when you delete it in Salesforce, it's not deleted in Marketo. Yeah. So it was just interesting, because they were like, this person is a terrible person. They, I won't go into what they said, but it was very...
Yikes.
Yeah, yikes for them, but it was I kind of had my popcorn like, oh my God. Because it wasn't like life-ending terrible, but it was just drama.
Yeah.
And
it's a little embarrassing.
I know.
To have, you don't want that, but.
So that is, that was a funny story.
Yeah.
Funny to me, kind of.
Funny later.
I kind of let her know, like, hey.
Yikes. Check.
We kind of see this on marketing. She wasn't in marketing. And she was very apologetic, and she felt very bad. Yeah. But it was not like anything that she should lose her job over.
But that is crazy that people do that. They just blast you, and that's the scary thing about it. You don't want to be on blast by somebody in your work. So
and what do you do when it's someone in marketing ops? They're just it's not gonna work.
No, they're gonna see it.
It's gonna go straight to them.
You're like the detective.
Yeah,
you catch it. You're finding the clues.
We see it first.
Yeah. Funny.
Well, that wraps up this episode of Power Talk. Thank you for listening. We had a really good time on this episode.
Yeah, let us know your funny stories in the chats, and we hope to see you next time. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on all social media platforms.
Keep up with us and all of our hot takes on all things go-to-market operations. See you next time.